Namaskaram, MFD Galaxy. It is actually tough to call it MFD Galaxy. I'm so used to calling it IFA Galaxy. And the name has changed. We have to adapt to the times. Koral ke karda, Pinadi? Okay. So, in the session today, theme is AI times EI equals GI. Right? We all understand broadly the concept. And where do we start from and where do we end? Right? AI always starts with data. So we will start with data. But data has to give you some insight. Like, what is it that you should do with that? Right? And what are the actions specifically? So in session lab, what I will try to cover is what is some of the data that helps us understand what we should do as MFDs in this environment, given what all is going on in the markets. Right? So start pannathara, we just wanted to take a look at the overall industry growth. Right? First of all, this is the last few years' industry growth rates. Right? When we started in this industry, which was around April 23, Appo industry AUM was around 38 lakh crores. Right? And it had been growing at about 21% CAGR in the past. So our assumption and our estimates for FY30 was 130 lakh crores, which by the way was very high as an estimate at that point of time. Because at that time, AMFI also had released a report which said 100 lakh crores by 2030 is what we expect. Right? So we also thought maybe this is over-aggressive. We have to think twice. And where are we today? We are actually at 82 lakh crores already. This is more than 1.5 years ahead of track. Right? So even 130 lakh crores, which we thought was an overestimate, might end up being an underestimate. So this is a market which is growing very significantly. And even if I look at just last 1 year, in the left-hand side, what you will see is the index growth rate. What is it that the market has given? Right? Whether it is large cap, mid cap, and small cap obviously has not even given much returns. But overall, Nifty 500 has given around 7% returns. But in that same time, overall, if you look at the growth of AUM, folios, or even SIP, these are around 20%. I think this is showing tremendous volume growth in our industry. Right? And credit goes to a lot of you for having driven this, but also many other channels that are beginning to come to the party. So point is, it's not only market growth, volume growth is also very significant in our industry. What we are seeing is a substantial shift. India is moving from a land of savers to a land of investors. Last 6 years, if you just take a look at the data, what you will see over here is the percentage of financial savings, which is going into mutual funds and equities, has increased from 8% to 15%. It has reduced in currency and bank deposits. So people are keeping lesser money in currency and bank deposits. They are bringing it into mutual funds and equities. This is a very clear shift that is taking place. Now, people ask this question, has the growth already happened? Is it finished? Is there still more room for growth? So in the page, what we are showing is what is a comparison of India versus similar markets on an AUM to GDP ratio. Right? In the last 6-7 years, what we have done is we have caught up with China. Right? China used to be far ahead of us. We have actually caught up with them. But if you compare India with other emerging markets, like South Africa, Malaysia, Brazil, still a lot of room to grow. Right? Then if you compare with developed markets, even more room to grow. Right? So we have only seen the trailer so far. The industry's brightest days are actually ahead of us. And why is that so? Right? Because there are some very strong growth drivers that are working in our favor. Right? If you look at earnings growth, I think next couple of years, the earnings growth rates are expected to be in the low teens. Right? So between 12 to 15% is what is expected growth rate. Second, 5.5 crore investors today, unique investors in the market. Each year that is growing by around 1 crore. So that's another 15% growth. Third, you have SIPs, which are growing very strongly. SIP itself is around between 8 to 10% of AUM on equity plus hybrid. So when you look at the overall growth corridor, the market can very easily move to close to 30% plus on the equity and hybrid side. So this is the opportunity that is in front of all of us. I think we are all very, very fortunate that we are in India, we are in the mutual fund industry, and we are in India in the mutual fund industry at this point of time. It's a fantastic opportunity for all of us. So that is the opportunity. But now, if we have to work to actually deliver the full opportunity to our investors, what should we do? I actually call it partner alpha. See, in our industry, in the asset management industry, we all look at fund manager alpha. Right? But there is significant partner alpha, which is in your hands. You all control that alpha. You have to deliver that. What do I mean by that? Right? First, let us again look at some more data. Right? If you look at the first one we saw already, that mutual funds as a percentage of bank deposits, it is significantly growing. Right? Clearly, India is moving from savers to investors. Second, we are seeing increasingly the rise of influencers. And 82% of these influencers, followers, admit to being influenced by their financial advice. Imagine that, 82% are being influenced by that. But only 2% of these influencers are SEBI registered. That is also a problem. Right? And what we are increasingly seeing is 46% of all mutual fund investments are now coming through direct channels, which means people are investing more in a do-it-yourself mode. Right? So what you have to do, you have to actually pause and you have to think about what is your own moat as a distributor, what is your value add, and what can you do differently to protect that value add. This is going to be extremely, extremely important for all of you in this room going forward. Now, if you ask me, what are the three big things, right, that are your value add? I will again start with some data. On this slide, there's a lot of data, but what it is showing is the difference between the fund returns and the folio returns in the same fund. Right? This is Morningstar data. What this is showing is, let's say, across time periods, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, or across fund types, whether it is flexi cap, large cap, small caps, multi, sectoral, thematic, doesn't matter. One thing comes across very, very clearly. Folio returns are lesser than the fund returns by at least 2.5% to 5% every year, systematically. In some cases, it is even much more, but minimum 2.5% to 5%. This is the behavioral gap. Right? Why does this happen? This happens because investors act against their own interest. Right? So let's say today the market corrects by maybe 1% or so. And tomorrow there'll be a big headline, 5 lakh crores of market cap eroded. Right? What will the poor investor do? Right? He feels like his wealth is being destroyed. He has to do something. Right? And today it's very easy. You pick up your phone, you can trigger a redemption, you can pause your SIP. Very easy. But what have you done? You have locked in a lower NAV. 3 days later, there's some good news and suddenly market goes up 3%. Then he feels like, no, I must come back into this market. Right? And then what he has done is he has actually then locked in a loss. Right? Doing this regularly, time after time, leads to this result. Right? 2.5% to 5% alpha actually sits in your hands if you're able to control this behavior of investors. This is a very, very important aspect of your value add and something that you must protect. So preventing panic reactions, preventing self-goals. How do you do that? Plan in a cold state. When market is not doing something crazy, investor is not in any emotional state, you just sit down with the investor, have a discussion, maybe at the time of onboarding. Sir, what will you do when market goes up 10%? And equally, what will you do if the market corrects by 10%? But write it down. Because when the market is down 10%, investor's emotional state will be very different. He will not be doing the things that he should be doing at that point of time. So this is something which is very important. We have to make sure we are delivering that. I had written an article on this, which we published as well, which is Distributor Alpha. I'll have my team also share that with the MFD Galaxy team. The second big tool that you can bring to your investors is asset allocation. And this is a very, very important tool because it really helps investors get the full benefit out of their financial journey. Right? And it is important that you have a broad asset allocation and you can discuss and decide that at the time of onboarding. Don't tinker with it too much. Regularly do a review, maybe once every 6 months or once in a year, and just see where you are against your target allocation. If you're off, use either incremental money or book some profit to bring it back into that. What that does is actually gets the right investment decisions done for that investor. Right? You trim, you book profits wherever assets have become very overvalued. You buy more when assets are undervalued. You actually end up with very good results for investors. The second big value add for you is your own word. Right? Your word has power. See, I'll give you a simple example. Suppose you want to buy a car, right? And you've done all the research, you've looked at YouTube videos, everything, you decided this is the car I want to buy. But then you go and speak to somebody who knows a little bit about cars, and he says, Arey, why are you buying that car? This one is much better. I'm telling you. Immediately all your research is gone. Right? Why? Because that one discussion with somebody who is reasonably knowledgeable is worth more than all the digital research that you have done. Right? So we still trust that far more than whatever we may read. So your recommendation, right, is actually very, very important. It is far more important than anything that we will do in the digital world. Right? This being consistent in that messaging is even more important. Because finally what happens is clients invest in conviction. They are not investing in products. They don't want you to tell how much percentage return that product has made in the last 3-5 years. That is not relevant. That they can find themselves. They are asking you for your conviction. They're looking into your eyes and asking you, am I doing right? Right? That conviction is something that you bring to them. And this is very, very important because in India we see two distinct schools of thought. Right? We see one set of investors who are very, very conservative and opt for a very low return. Right? There is 88 lakh crores that is sitting in current accounts and savings accounts. What is the return that people are making on their savings accounts? 2.5 to 3%. Right? As advisors, would any of us suggest a 2.5 to 3% fully taxable product in that year? So it is clearly inefficient. Right? Similarly, FDs, where there's a significant lock-in, post office savings, right? Very, very safe, but very low returns. And then on the other hand, you also have people investing, quote unquote, investing in crypto. 73% of people who have invested in crypto have lost money. F&O, I think SEBI has given the data itself. 91% of people lose money in F&O. Right? Lotteries, right? You see this in very, very educated states as well. Right? But you will see 2 lakh crores is spent every year in lotteries. The winning is only 2,000 crores. 1% chance of winning. Right? But this is what is happening. You have two very diverse schools of investing in the country. Right? What is also happening is, slowly there is going to be a wealth transfer from the older to the young. Right? And what the young do is, they have very different views on real estate. They have very different views on how they want to invest and how they want to use digital tools to be able to invest. So if all of this is happening, where we stand is actually something which gives the perfect kind of a product. It stands right in the middle, right? Where if you have a holding period of at least 5 years, right, there is very minimal chance of you making negative returns. Very minimal chance, right? And second, it is a product that is endorsed very strongly, right? Where the regulator is saying it is so well regulated, there are so many disclosures, it is a low-cost product. It is actually mutual fund, this is sahi hai, which means it is right for every Indian. Right? That is a very rare endorsement. No other product in the country gets that endorsement. But yet, we have a situation where the amount of money that is sitting in current account and savings accounts is more than 2 times that which is sitting in equity AUM. Right? And the math is very simple. For every 1 lakh you keep in your savings account, you are losing 10 rupees every day when I compare it to, let's say, an overnight or a liquid fund. Right? 10 rupees every day for every 1 lakh extra you keep in your savings account. Right? So what we've done is we've looked at things like how do we channel that into the mutual fund industry using tools like Savings Plus. Can we look at how people can more systematically bring their extra money that is sitting in savings accounts into the mutual fund industry? This fund, by the way, when it was launched in China, it became the world's largest money market fund. Even there, the return gap was around 3.5 to 4%. between what people are making in their savings account versus what they could make in liquid or overnight funds. So for all of you, I think leveraging tech is going to become very, very important. Technology is one way in which you can scale up your business significantly without incurring huge costs. So the growth intelligence flywheel that I talked about in my article as well, which we published in the MFD Galaxy newsletter, what this talks about is how do you identify patterns from your data? How can technology help you to understand what are some of those nudges that you should then act on? Once you then use that to increase usage, you build trust. Then using that, you actually get much better outcomes, which leads to better intelligence as well. So this is like a fulfilling circle that comes together, and using data, but also using your own human emotional intelligence, you help to drive your business using technology to the next level. For all our partners, the way to think about this is then cash is not a problem. It is actually an opportunity. Surplus cash becomes an opportunity for all of you. Right? Your distribution businesses can expand very, very quickly. You can use technology to create habits. Can you create daily transaction habits? Right? Every conversation with your customer can become very sharp around asset allocation, around your specific opportunities, specific products. And for you, while you stay human, you use technology to scale yourself up digitally. Right? That is the way in which we believe you can and should use technology to really augment yourself and make yourself bigger with the client. On a day-to-day basis, a lot of you would be facing these kind of situations, right? Clients say, no, I'll do this later. Can I finish this investment by the time the coffee cools down? Can I do it on a Sunday family trip? I'm traveling somewhere. You have a lot of paperwork, a lot of time spent chasing signatures. Can you get expert CIO insights for me within half an hour? Right? So all of these, you actually can have simple technology solutions which can help you address each of these. This is what we have been working on, whether it is through our WhatsApp, through things like Savings Plus, or even group SIP platforms, which we launched through Empower, creating co-branded merchandise, bringing our CIO discussions on WhatsApp for you, creating custom QR so that you can do a transaction in your ARN code very, very quickly, and even an information vault where if you need a fund fact sheet, any kind of information about any of our schemes, you have it all available. So please use our technology tools. Please use all kinds of technology tools that are available, because when you put technology plus a human, a man plus machine is really the future. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the very best for your sessions.